name change, but this example that I'm about to walk you through is it absolutely is something I'm working with the current client on, and his name is John. He's got what we learned was John has about $100,000 sitting in an old 401k, and his goal is he called me going, "Hey, how can I get properly structured to be able to invest in real estate using my previous employer's plan that has $100,000 in it?" And I don't usually when people are ready to jump off the cliff, I try to pull them back because my first question to him was why? Why are you wanting to be able to invest in real estate? What is it about real estate you love? Like, what is the goal? And what I learned was John had just gotten laid off. And what happened when he had gotten laid off was, one, he's kind of in limbo as to, hey, I haven't figured out what my next career move is going to be, but I do know I've got this $100,000 available to me, and I want to be able to use this $100,000 to be able to invest in what I want. I said, okay,
He wasn't ready.
right. And again, the goal was to be able to use. Just a minute. The goal was to be able to use his retirement dollars to get it starting and working for him now, create tax-free retirement for life, and then also be in a position to be able to potentially early retire. Well, anyone who it was the early retire part that kind of jumped out at me. Anyone who has a traditional retirement account, IRA, 401k, 403b, TSP, government 457 plan, please name one, SEP IRA, please name one that allows you to be able to retire early. Just one. And when he mentioned retire early, because he is 37, and he should be in a position to be able to retire early. I don't know many people in their 30s who plan on working till they're 72. But
That would suck.
Because the goal is to be able to retire early, what I wanted to do is help him understand there are other vehicles. And that's where the MPI piece came into play. And Gabe, to your point, whole life policy is a similar type vehicle that allows you to be able to access your money when you want, not having to wait until 59 and a half or 70 years old, whatever, or until some company tells you can access your money.
Yeah.
So
Not good.
Again, he called me focused on one thing. Oh, sorry. Anyway, he called me focused on one thing. Can he convert his previous employer's policy to a self-directed 401k? And that's not a problem. And I focus heavily on structure. Everything I kind of educate on is around structure and what that structure looks like. And so, yes, getting properly structured to be able to invest in what you want, and also having full control. Because a lot of companies offer self-directed retirement accounts, but when you ask how much control you actually have, they end up having to go through their custodian to be able to take action. And what I do is I structure things such that the only person you have to answer to is you. The actions you want to take are determined based off you and not off anyone else. And he was asking me if I knew of any opportunities where he can not only yield a decent return, but also be able to make sure that his money's secure and not lose. And again, real estate is his goal. And what I kind of connected him to is self-storage. And it's mainly because it's something that I invest in as well. There are self-storage facility opportunities out there that will pay you not only a decent, I'll call it return year over year, but there's also a payout at the end. And this one specifically that he ended up falling into was a payout of around 12% annually. And once the self-storage facility is 80% full, pays out an additional 20%. So he's got $100,000 sitting in his previous employer's plan. We moved that $100,000 into a self-directed 401k. He took $50,000 of that previous $50,000 of his self-directed 401k and invested it in self-storage. Now you might be asking, why didn't he take the full 100? Because he absolutely could have. And $100,000 at 12% annually and 20% once it's sold is pretty significant. But he had a second goal. So he took 50% of what was in his self-directed 401k, invested in self-storage, and you see the return. That remaining 50%, that other $50,000, he had a goal. And it was based off the fact that he wants to be able to achieve tax-free retirement income for life. And remember, he wants to be able to retire early. Well, because he wants to be able to retire early, that cannot be accomplished whether it's a self-directed IRA or 401k or traditional IRA or 401k. It doesn't matter. You have to wait till 59 and a half. So the vehicle that I shared with him in order for him to be able to retire early is MPI. And so what he wanted to do was take a portion of the money that the remaining money that he has inside of his self-directed 401k and be able to contribute that or some portion of that into his MPI plan.
Well, how are they able to do that though?
Yep. Because let's be clear, IRAs, 401ks is a IRS controlled retirement account under a wholly different IRS code compared to cash value life insurance products like MPI. So you cannot take retirement dollars and move retirement dollars into a cash value life insurance policy without being taxed and penalized. This gentleman had just gotten laid off, so he definitely doesn't have the money to be taxed, and he definitely doesn't want to be penalized on the $100,000 that he has. So the objective is, how do I use this money and avoid all of those issues? Well, with the self-directed 401k, which is no different than a employer's 401k, all of us are able to borrow from our 401ks with our employers. Well, when you have your own self-directed 401k, you have that same opportunity. You're able to leverage and or borrow from your 401k to be able to use for whatever you want.
Hold on one second. We have a comment from Patricia Daniels. Thank you for joining us, Patricia. She said, operative word tax-free. And I'm not sure if what you mean is in the traditional sense of tax-free income, but this is actually different. So if it maybe clarify that comment, because I want to make sure that there's not an assumption here, or that we can clarify something if there is an assumption.
And let me help. There's tax-free and there's tax-deferred. I am not talking about tax-deferred. If you have a traditional retirement account with an employer, 9 times out of 10, you have a tax-deferred retirement account. What does that mean? You don't have to pay taxes today. They're going to take that money out of your income before it gets taxed, and they're going to move it into that retirement vehicle, and that money is going to grow tax deferred until you hit retirement age. And then at retirement age, you're going to be taxed on all of it. I am absolutely not talking about tax deferred. I am talking about tax free. And in order to achieve tax free status, some boxes have to be checked. So it's not just automatic, meaning if we were talking about a traditional retirement plan versus a non-traditional, like a Roth account, you have to pay taxes on the seed. Any growth from that money is growing tax-free.
Right.
If we're talking about cash value life insurance products, it's about structure. A properly structured, secure compound interest account can produce tax-free income, but how you do it matters. It is not just, hey, I bought this whole life insurance policy and now I'm able to access my money tax-free. How you go about it matters.
And,
so go ahead.
And the other thing that I want to say is tax deferred also means it's an open check for for whatever the tax rate is in the future. That's what you're going to pay on your money. So it's just decreasing the value of your dollar over time. He doesn't want to be chasing deals. He wants to know that this machine is going to be printing out money for him for the rest of his life, and everything's going to be okay regardless of inflation. He's going to have enough. And that's what we have too. So we know that this works. This is exactly what we do. And this is why we were able to supercharge our machine and get to where we are so quickly.
So let's reset the stage.
Yep.
Again, he had $100,000 sitting in his 401k. He took $50,000 of that and invested it in self-storage. And that remaining $50,000, he took as a loan. He borrowed 50% of what's in his self-directed 401k, 50% of 100,000, 50,000, and he now has access to all 50,000 tax-free. There's no penalty because he's borrowing the money against himself. Now, there are rules associated with borrowing money from yourself. One of them is, hey, if you're going to borrow money from your 401k, you have to charge yourself an interest rate. And notice I said you have to charge yourself an interest rate, which means you have to determine what that interest rate should be. And this loan that you have 5 years to be able to pay it back. But the cool part about all of this is you set the stage, you set the rules for all of it. And John had my client had some specific criteria that he wanted. He wanted to be able to use this 50,000 and not be liable for any of the expense associated with using this money. Meaning he's going to borrow, he wanted to borrow 50,000 from himself, and he understands he have to pay that 50,000 back. But is there a way to structure this so that the growth on the 50,000 actually pays the expense?
Yeah, you guys are going to love this.
So here's what we decided to do. We're going to split that 50,000 that he just borrowed, and we're going to do two things with that. We're going to take 30,000 of that 50,000, and we're also going to invest in self-storage. So just like what we did over here, we're going to take that 30,000. So in essence, we're taking 80, but 30 of that 80, he has control over, and that remaining 50, his 401k has control over.
Because that 30 came out of the 50 of the loan for 50K.
Right. He borrowed 50,000 from himself.
Yes.
He's taking 30,000 of that 50,000 that he borrowed, and he's going to invest into the same opportunity that his 401k is invested in.
Okay.
That leaves 20,000. What do you do with that 20,000? Well, again, he's focused on producing tax-free retirement income, and he would like to use that remaining 20,000 to start an MPI plan. So again,
because he wants to do both.
Yep. He wants to be able to, he wants the gains of the market, but in addition, he wants to be able to grow passive income for himself without the risk of real estate or the risk of the stock market or whatever the case may be. He wants to be able to grow that money tax-free.
Look at him. He's so cool sitting in his chair. He's chilling. He's like, I want it all. Why can't I? Show me how to have it all, Donnell.
And as I mentioned, that $50,000 that he's borrowing, he does have to pay it back. Well, he set the interest rate at 5%. Why is it 5% and not 15% or some other percentage? Well, here's the way it reads inside of the IRS code. You have to charge yourself a reasonable interest rate. So it basically means you have to charge yourself an interest rate that you would qualify for. So you don't want to charge yourself anything that will cause you to get in trouble with the IRS. I guess in lack of putting it in different terms. So he chose 5%. Why? He already had a loan outstanding that he'd already qualified for 5% for. So he's using that same interest rate because he'd qualify for a 5% interest rate.
Okay.
And in addition,
oh, go ahead.
And in addition, this 5% is not a compounding interest rate because he gets to decide what this interest rate is. This isn't 5% compounding annually. This is 5% annualized, meaning over the full term of the loan, a 5-year loan at 5%, 5% times 50,000 is $2,500. So it's $2,500 over the life of the loan. You divide $2,500 by 5 years, it equates to $42 a month.
Now, for some people, this could be the first step in becoming your own bank, because imagine this was a car, right?
Right.
And all the interest that you're paying to a bank for a loan, you could be paying to yourself. And we gave that example with Alex and his scooter. I think it was last week, right?
Right.
Showing the difference of leveraging and becoming your own bank. That was a Velocity Banking example, but you could easily apply it to here too. Okay.
Absolutely. And I think this is also in line with the Velocity Banking example that I have on YouTube, where you take a policy loan, pay off a large amount of debt as it relates to credit cards, and then continue on from there. So yes, because this is money that you have now borrowed, you get to use it for whatever you would like, and you're using it tax-free. So again, just to reset the stage, he borrowed $50,000 from himself. He's charging himself 5% interest. The length of this loan is over the next 5 years. So he can do whatever he wants with this $50,000 for the next 5 years. But at the end of that 5 years, he owes $52,500.
So what you're saying is he could borrow it again and again, those same dollars without paying any more in interest during that term.
Once that $50,000 is in his checking account, he can do whatever he wants to with it, however many times he wants to do it.
Let's see what he does with it.
All right. So to kind of break that down, as I mentioned, he took that $30,000 of the $50,000 and invested in self-storage. So this is kind of a breakdown of what those numbers look like. And I'm going to make John make this a little bit bigger so you can read it, but I'm going to move John out of the way.
And for now, just for reference, we're not talking about the 50,000 that he invested directly from his 401k. We're only talking about the personal loan.
Right.
Yeah.
He borrowed 50,000. He took 30,000 of the money that he borrowed and invested in self-storage. It's bringing him 12%. And what's interesting about this 12% is this is 12% annually, and it's paid out monthly. So 12% of $30,000 annually, paid out monthly. 12% of 30,000 is, what is that? 3,600. 3,600 divided by 12 is $300 a month. So over the next 5 years, if the project took 5 years, he would make $300 a month over the next 5 years. Now, sometimes self-storage facilities take 90 days. Sometimes they take 24 months. Sometimes they do take 5 years. I'm in a project that I think I'm on year 5 right now. So the bottom line is this project that he's currently investing in is a 5-year project, and he's put $30,000 in, making 12% over that next 5-year period, which equates to about $18,000. That 12% also pay at the end of the 5-year period. I mean, the deal also pays out an additional 20% of his investment on top. So it's an incentive for you to keep your money in for the 5-year period. So it's 12% annually, $300 a month. And then once the facility is 80% full, they sell. And when they sell, all of the investors get an additional 20% on top. So 20% on top, 20% of $30,000 is 10 grand. Wait, no, I'm sorry. 20% of $30,000 is 6 grand. So he ends up making $18,000 in interest, plus an additional $6,000 once it's sold. So that's a total of $24,000 over that 5-year period. But what does he owe on the $50,000 over that 5-year period? He owes $2,500.
Yes.
So he used $30,000 in a compound interest producing vehicle outside of the market, investing in self-storage, building tax-free a tax-free return because he's using leverage dollars. And he ended up making all of the interest required to pay back a $50,000 loan off of one investment.
Just off of the 30K paid for the whole 50K.
Yep. And that's ultimately what we're saying
and more.
Here.
And more.
This $30,000 made a total of $24,000 over that 5-year period, and it paid for the $2,500 for the $50K loan that was owed. And so once you remove the cost of borrowing, that ROI, the return on investment, ends up being about $21,500.
Yeah.
Now, that's just the $30,000. What about the remaining 20?
Yeah. Do you know where the other 20,000 is?
So I guess this is just a recap of kind of what happened here. The self-storage covering that $30,000 made in self-storage covered the entire expense of what it cost to borrow, and left about $1,500 in extra. I'll call it leftover. And remember, this was the goal of my client. He wanted to be able to do this, and he didn't want any liability coming back on him. Meaning he didn't want to have to pay for any loan. He didn't want to have to pay any premiums going into MPI. He didn't want to have to pay any premiums going into self-storage. He wanted all to be covered using that $50,000. So that $30,000 took care of the cost of borrowing.
So now he gets a free MPI plan, essentially.
And in essence, he takes that remaining $20,000, and you're absolutely 100% correct. He gets a free MPI plan using the $20,000. And what we did was we spread the $20,000 over the next 2 years. So why only 24 months? Well, starting in year 3, MPI has this unique feature called a relock or premium finance or leverage. Basically, it's similar to a 401k match. Starting in year 3, you get to add all of the money you put in year 1 into year 3. Well, at year 3, he has an option. He can allow the relock to pay the premiums going forward. He can continue using $10,000 from the money that he's borrowed going forward. He can reduce the $10,000 down to $200 a month going forward. The moral of the story is he has many, many options. And the many options he has available to him creates a range, meaning depending on the option he chooses, he could have anywhere from $50,000 to $133,000 in tax-free income for life just by deciding which option that he wants. Now, the most lucrative option would be to continue the $10,000 a year every year inside of his MPI plan until he hits that age that he wants to retire. Whether
And
that's 50, 55, 58, 65, it doesn't matter. He has a choice, and he can make that choice in a vehicle like this because he's not penalized for it. Go ahead.
he can still leverage his self-directed account to take out personal loans to keep dumping if he wanted to. Does he have to make decisions and choices along the way? Does he have to?
I think that what's awesome about that question is there's a misconception here. A self-directed 401k requires action from you. A self-directed 401k does not take action if you aren't taking that $50,000 and putting it in self-storage. The self-directed 401k isn't making any moves if you don't break up the 50,000 that you borrow, take 30,000 of it, invest it, take 20,000 and put it in MPI.
There's no broker.
Action. So there's action required from you in order to make this money work for you.
Yeah.
But as it relates to MPI, you've got one job. Your job is to put in your premiums. The structure associated with your policy, the actions at years 1, 2, and 3, or 4, or when the relock or the premium finance or the participating loan gets added or the match gets added to your policy, all of that happens internally, and all of that happens through me as your advisor. Meaning, at year 3, when it's time for you to take action, you don't have to question whether you're at year 3. What's going to happen is you're going to get a call from me, and I'm going to lay out everything that's going on with your MPI plan. And what you will be able to do is decide how you want to proceed. And again, he has an option that will allow him to either be $50,000 a year tax-free for life up to about $133,000 tax-free for life. So I will walk him through what those options are, and all he has to do is choose. So action-wise, his only action is to contribute to his policy.
Yeah.
From there, every other action, all of the structure associated with this policy, when the relock feature happens, when leverage is added, all of that happens internally. And any additional actions that need to be happening within your policy is going to happen through me, meaning you will be informed by me as to what those actions need to be.
What happens if something happens to John?
So again, this is the
I mean like what happens if he gets sick? What happens if he just can't go back to work? What happens if John decides something happened, I cannot work anymore? Maybe he has to take care of his mom or his family member, and so or his kids, right? Kids are sometimes not well also, and parents have to handle that too. So what happens if something happens to John, he can't continue working, and he's got this MPI plan, he's had it maybe 10 years? What happens then?
We can look at it in the calculator, but high level, what it looks like is the income or the cash value that's been accumulated in his policy over the last 10 years, he has access to. He has full access to be able to do whatever he wants. Now, we will identify how much income that would be over that 10-year period, and more than likely, to be fully transparent, it's probably not what he would be expecting to be able to live, but it is supplemental, meaning it is enough for him to be able to use to do whatever he wants, and he has the full cash value to leverage if he needs to. So if he needed to put that down a down payment on a home, buy a car, pay some type of significant expense, he has this savings plan, not an investment plan. He has this savings plan that he is able to access. But in addition, like, there's many levers here that's able to be pulled, because that's if he just has to stop working to take care of someone else. But what if there's some type of terminal or chronic illness? Well, built inside of this, meaning it's not something additional that he has to buy. Built inside of this is a terminal chronic illness rider. And what that means is, if God forbid there was some type of terminal or chronic illness, meaning he didn't die, he just can't work due to whatever these reasons are, cancer, whatever the case may be, he would be able to use the death benefit, meaning the life insurance plus the cash value. He would be able to use the death benefit as income while he's living to be able to pay bills or use his income or whatever the case. I think it's ultimately like around 80% of whatever that total is. But the bottom line is he's not left out here stranded. Like, show me the 401k that allows you to pull from it if you were hit with some type of terminal or chronic illness in your 40s, 15 years before retirement age, and you weren't taxed and penalized if you touch your money. Like,
Yeah,
again, it just doesn't exist.
Patricia's saying, right, you must secure yourself. And this is heartbreaking actually, because anybody who has known anyone who has gone through terminal illness or has had to battle and fight, one, you know that it's not just that person who's fighting. It's the whole family who's fighting and impacted by this, right? You don't know what's going to happen. We are not promised tomorrow. We're not promised our health tomorrow. But what I really appreciate is that now we do have options. And that's why we're out here talking about them, because we have to have more people educated on these things so that you're not in this position at any time, you or anyone you love, right?
Right. Any other questions out there?
Nope. She says it's unheard of.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, just to touch on that before I jump back into the example, it's unheard of for a reason. Like, this is by design.
Yeah.
You don't know about this. This isn't offered at your job because you have to think, kind of peel the layers back and go, who benefits? If you don't know this information, who benefits? The people that benefit are your employer, the banks who have or the custodians who have your retirement account. Like, if you don't know some of these answers or some of these maneuvers around risk and loss, the people who benefit from you not knowing are the people who are making money off you hand over fist.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely by design. But you give us time. This will replace traditional retirement accounts. MPI will replace traditional retirement accounts. Properly structured cash value life insurance policies will replace traditional retirement accounts because you can eliminate the risk.
And this is the pension.
Right. This is the return of the pension. This is the absolute return of the pension. And here's the cool part about this pension. You don't have to be at this particular company in order to have this pension.
Right.
This pension follows you. And the value of this pension doesn't now somehow get reduced because you left company X. So hopefully what this transitions into is we learn to use our jobs as tools. And we use the income that we're making from these jobs, who really could care less about us, but we use that income to pay ourselves first. And I think that's what Patricia said. You have to secure yourself. So it's pay yourself first, somewhere secure, get your money compounding, and then you leverage that money and exponentially grow that money so that you can have income for the rest of your life. So that's absolutely what the goal is. So, moral of the story here. John was able to achieve. Actually, I want to start down here. What has honestly happened? John had a 401k that he ended up moving to a self-directed 401k. Now, this is an asset. And he took that asset and he made a different asset. And out of that asset, several things happened. He put 50,000 into one asset. He put 30,000 into another asset. And then he took 20,000 and added another asset. In essence, this one self-directed 401k ended up getting split into two separate assets that one is producing tax-free income for life, and the others have the ability to do the same, but it is not dependent on what's happening with the others. Meaning these are all separate assets working on their own that allows him to be able to do whatever he wants. So again, he has this ability to be able to achieve $50,000 to $133,000 in his MPI plan. That MPI plan has a life insurance policy, which means that there's a death benefit associated with if something were to happen to him immediately. And last but not least, that death if he didn't use that death benefit early and he ended up living till age 65 and beyond, that death benefit becomes $2 amounts. That death benefit is the life insurance plus the cash value not used, and so it ends up being anywhere from a million to $2.7 million in death benefit that he's able to pass on to his beneficiaries. And so, to Patricia's point, what we're talking about here is not just not just an income producing vehicle, but it's a vehicle that this is also how we start to create generational wealth. This is how we now, instead of passing off liabilities to our kids, we're actually passing off functioning, secure compound interest accounts in the form of assets that allow us to create generational wealth
that they can pass on too.
So ultimately what has occurred here is, he came to me with, obviously being laid off, which is not the greatest situation. But after being laid off, we were able to take that $100,000, generate income, and put it in a vehicle that allows him to achieve financial security. Yes, he's not stressed out because he didn't know what he was going to do. Right.
Look at his hairline. Yeah, he's got that going for him.
And the piece that's missing here is what he ultimately has is control.
Full control.
He has the control to be able to do what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, without being concerned of, am I going to be penalized or taxed based off some of the actions that I do. He has full access to me to be able to talk through what opportunities are and are not. Again, I'm not here to provide financial advice or tell you what to invest in. But if you have a path that you want to go down, we can absolutely discuss that path. And I can help you understand the best way to go down to be able to achieve tax-free results, if not tax-deferred results.
We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get self-directed.